Okay, a long time ago, but not in a galaxy far, far away, actually right here on the planet Earth, before anyone ever set foot in California, there were Ice Age people in northern Asia who lived their lives by following woolly mammoth around. And so they were actually hunters because they followed the mammoth around and they were hunting them. Let me finish drawing my Ice Age person here with his spear and his skirt-like thing. These people, when they followed the mammoth around, were called migrating people because a migrating person is someone who follows a food source around or who follows other kind of resources around.
Weather, climate.
Here's a picture of a woolly mammoth. These are the critters that they were following around. And the woolly mammoths were basically kind of like the early ancestors of today's elephants. Now, all of this happened about 20,000 years ago, so a really, really, really long time ago. You wouldn't know any of the people that migrated because it happened that long ago. There's your mammoth. Okay. Okay, now these migrating Ice Age people who follow the woolly mammoth everywhere the woolly mammoth went actually ended up following the woolly mammoth to, so actually here's Asia. They followed the woolly mammoth across this strip of ice right here. It's a big strip of ice that no longer exists. But back then it was a giant strip of ice that actually connected Asia with North America, which I'm currently drawing right here. So here's Asia and here is North America. They followed those woolly mammoths on foot all the way across that icy land bridge to North America. And those Ice Age people ended up being the first people ever to step foot in North America. They didn't realize at the time what a big idea or what a big deal that was, but it was. And nowadays we call that icy bridge that they crossed, we call it the Bering Land Bridge. Okay, so these Ice Age people that we're talking about that kept following the woolly mammoth everywhere they went, do you think that they ended up in California? Well, of course they ended up in California. Well, do you think these Ice Age people called the place where they ended up? Do you think they actually called it California? Well, no, of course, they didn't call it California. That happened later on. But they did end up in California. And actually, here's a cool fact for you. When they ended up in California, they ended up settling in several regions in California. So they settled in northeastern California, on the coast of Northern California. They settled in central California, and they also settled in Southern California, and even in San Diego, where we live. Okay, so these migrating Ice Age individuals that crossed over the Bering Land Bridge to get to California are actually the ancestors of these California natives. So, and even of the California natives that you may meet and see here in California still. Yeah, and not all areas of California are sunny beach towns, I hope you know. So like in Northeast California, for example, the winters can be really, really cold right here in Northeast California. And so actually the peoples who settled here, some of them were called the Akomai people, and during the winters they built houses in caves or basically underground in order to protect themselves from the cold, cold winter months. Okay, so the fact that the Akomai people learned how to build houses in caves shows that they learned how to adapt to their environments that they lived in. And another way that the natives learned how to adapt to the environments they lived in is to pick the certain kinds of foods that they would end up eating. And so the Akomai people of the northeastern part of California relied on grass, certain kinds of grasses for their diet, and they also relied on, you're gonna love this one. Ooh, that's a crazy looking deer. They relied on deer for their diets too. And another thing that they frequently ate, don't be sad. Can you tell what it is yet? Yes, rabbits. Because all of these things were plentiful in northeastern California where the Akomai people lived. Let's move on to a different part of California where some of the natives settled, and that would be the western, kind of like the northwestern part of California. And a group of natives that settled there were called the Hoopa Indians. And the Hoopa Indians, because they lived on the coast, they also learned how to adapt to their environments. And one of the ways that they did it was to settle near rivers and other areas where they were moving water, because then they could build canoes and use those canoes for transportation. And that was a really, really important aspect of using their environments. Okay, so the Hoopa people, since they lived on the coast, I'll bet you're guessing right now that they ate a lot of fish. And if you were guessing that, you are actually right. But what kind of fish do you think they ate? Do you think they ate fried fish? If you said yes, well, you are wrong. No, they did not eat fried fish. They ate a certain kind of fish, and I'll bet you all have heard this before, called... Let me draw a little bit more of it first, so you can give me a drum roll if you want. Wow, that's a mean looking one. But they ate, are you guessing it yet? Salmon. Salmon was a really, really important part of the Hoopa diet. Okay, now we're going to skip over this central part of California right now, just because I'm really excited to move on to the southern part of California, because of course, that's where we're from. Now, the natives who settled in the southern part of California actually had 3 different choices of regions that they could settle in. They were really lucky, super lucky. Because in Southern California, there are 3 different regions or areas where the natives could pick. The first region that they could pick to live in was in the coastal regions. Sunny Southern California, like in the San Diego area where we currently live. That would be considered a coast region. Another region that they could settle in would be in the mountainous regions. And those are just to the east of us, so they could settle in the mountains. And another area where they might choose to settle in, although my guess is, I don't know why, would be in the desert regions. And I'm going to draw a sad sun for that because he's way, way hot. And depending on which region they settled in, the natives adapted to each of these 3 regions, just kind of like the other natives from the other regions adapted to their regions. One band of natives that settled here, and you may have heard of these people before because you are from San Diego, are the Kumeyaay natives. And we'll be learning more about them later in the year. Now, the Kumeyaay people that I'm talking about actually settled in several parts of California, and it kind of depended on the seasons and other factors. And so if they settled near the coast, they ended up having as part of their diet, what kind of food do you think? Yes, fish. And then also, they actually ate a lot of, and let's see if I can do this at all. Can you tell what it is? Somebody? I hope so. It's a clam with eyeballs. But if they settled in more mountainous regions or in kind of grassier areas, then they relied on lots of different kinds of berries. And then once again, and also don't be sad again, this is just a cartoon one, but they did, if they lived in the mountainous regions and other areas away from the coast, they relied on deer also as part of their diets.